All right. Here's your check. You're welcome. All right. So moving into part 2, right? Where the sieve and the sand. And if you remember, yeah. Okay. You left your notes in here?
Okay.
All right. I don't know what you want me to do about that,
Do some magic.
but start taking new ones. All right. The sieve and the sand. And if you remember the sieve and the sand, the title of this part 2, comes from that scene. We get that brief paragraph where it describes Montag as a child, right? Trying to fill up a sieve with sand. It was that like a colander, like a filter. And you get that really sad image of him, like maybe 5 years old, right? Hands burning from the hot sand, right? Blistered, as he tries to accomplish an impossible task, right? Tears streaming down his face as he tries to do something that cannot be done, right? And it hurts emotionally, physically. We get this image of him. And the question becomes then, why call this section the sieve and the sand, or the sieve, however you want to pronounce it? And what do those represent? What we could start to figure out is Montag goes and seeks out Faber, right? That what does Montag want Faber to help him do? They get there, but there was something he asked for first. All right, to understand what he reads. And we begin to see that Montag's brain is the sieve or the sieve, right? It's the mesh filter. And all the knowledge that's in the book is flowing right through his brain. He's trying to remember all of it, to understand it. But because he hasn't trained his brain, right, he doesn't understand what he's reading. And so it's just leaking right through, and it's causing him this pain. And so let's differentiate between being able to read and understanding what you read. For instance, is that love? Is that love? Like when I say I love my wife, do I hand her this? No. That is a bunch of squiggly lines that we agree represent the idea of love. Just like this is not a tree, right? Those are squiggly lines that we agree represent the idea of a tree, right? Those are squiggly lines. They represent the idea of two things and two things combining into one group of four things. This is 2 + 2 = 4. Those are squiggly lines that represent that idea. You follow me? All right. That's kind of how the written word works, right? So just like even when I say the word love, that is not love. That's sound, right? That's waves moving through the air. And that change in air pressure, that change in sound represents the idea of love, right? Can I change the airwaves in a different language? In Amor, in some languages, right? That's the idea of love. But all of this language is meant to represent ideas. This is where Montag has a breakdown, right? He can read that word, love, tree, 2 + 2 = 4, but he needs Faber, as you pointed out, to help him understand what he reads, to be able to comprehend it, to make the ideas link up and work together. So on page 78, do you see the paragraph that begins, nobody listens anymore, right? Nobody listens anymore. I can't talk to the walls because they're yelling at me. What are the walls? The TV, right? I can't talk to my wife. She listens to the walls, right? I just want someone to hear what I have to say. And maybe if I talk long enough, it'll make sense. Through Montag, Bradbury's hitting on a really big idea. What's the First Amendment to our Constitution? Freedom of speech. There's a reason that's number one. Have you ever been in a situation where you were upset about something or you had a problem? Maybe you sat down with a really good friend that you trusted, or a parent, or a mentor, or a coach, or somebody, and you talked about that problem. And through that conversation, you discovered the solution. You figured out a way to fix it. Sound familiar? All right. Speech, dialogue is important to how humans think. All right? It's how we operate. No. You're missing what's going on here. This is more important. So, in order for that conversation to happen, I can't talk to a wall, right? Speech requires that I have somebody that does what? Listens, right? You got to participate. It's a two-way event. So the freedom of speech, when we think about it, and what Montag is experiencing is he can talk, but he's got nobody to listen, right? So whether it's in conversation, you come up with a great new idea, or you solve a problem that you've had, the act of speaking is what brings our ideas into reality. That's the way our ideas become real in the world. And Montag is starting to notice he just needs somebody to listen to him. Maybe if I could talk to somebody, we could figure out what's wrong. He's exactly right, but he's got nobody to talk to, right? Mildred is a great listener, isn't she? And then he goes on to say, I want you to teach me to understand what I read. Now, we go down, see where it says you're a hopeless romantic. It would be funny if it were not serious. It's not books you need. It's some of the things that once were in books. The same things could be in the parlor families of today. Parlor families is TV shows, right? Absolutely. It's the TV shows. So this stuff it can be in books, what he's about to talk about, but it could also be in TV. It could also be in movies. So let me give you an example of the difference he's making here. When I had first started teaching, right, I confiscated a book from a young lady. And I read a paragraph of this book. And this book did not have pictures. It did not need pictures. It was quite graphic about biblical, carnal, personal, physical events. You follow what I'm saying? It was very graphic. Certainly not school appropriate. You could call it printed pornography to an extent, right? Now, here's the deal. It is not the book itself. It is not that something is bound, has a cover and printed pages. It's not the book. Faber is saying it's what's in the book. So that book I confiscated is much different than To Kill a Mockingbird, which we read earlier this year, right? Another way to think about it. If I had a man dying of thirst, could I give him a cup? Does he care about the cup?
No.
Not at all. What's he want?
Water.
The water. So we want to understand the book is the cup. What the author says and how they say it, the story, that's the water. Now, could I use that cup to give that thirsty man beautiful mountain, delicious spring water?
Yeah.
Could I use it to poison him?
Yeah.
Right? So we don't want to confuse the container with what is being held in it, right? I could put that awesome water in a pot, right? I could put it in a grocery bag. Might not hold it quite as well, but it would hold it. It's the same water. So these stories and what Faber is going to tell us about could exist in places other than books. But why do we use cups? It's the most functional, right? It's the easiest way to drink the water. Why do books tend to have more of these things than other containers? Because it's the most efficient. It's the best container, right? Though other things could hold water as well. Other things could hold these stories or have these qualities. That's what Faber is about to talk to us about. All right. Then we find out how easy was it for you to understand what Faber was communicating to Montag? Especially compared to old Beatty over here. How many points is Faber going to make? Look on the top of 79. The last sentence of the first paragraph. How many points is he going to make? 79. How do you know? It says 3 things are missing. So this is a great lesson for us as writers, right? This is your thesis statement and your topic sentences. He makes it very easy for Montag to understand the points he's going to make. So he goes, there are 3 things that are missing. How do you know he's about to tell us what the first one is? He literally says number 1 to us. I'm like, thank you, dude. I can write this down. This is a piece of cake, right? So what's the first thing that he says that is missing? Quality, right? Do you know why books such as this are so important? Because they have quality. And what does the word quality mean? To me, it means texture. The book has pores. It has features. The book can go under the microscope. So let's think about microscopes for a minute. What do they help us do?
Small things.
I either see small things or you could see deeper into something, right? So if I had a piece of grilled pineapple for lunch. It's delicious. I could see it, right? Looked like a little disc with a hole in the middle, yellow. If I put that under the microscope, I could probably see the texture even better, couldn't I? And I could zoom it in. Could I eventually see the cells of that pineapple? And maybe a little further, the organelles. And then even further, I maybe get down to the atoms. And if I had a really expensive microscope, maybe even the subatomic particles, right? But you can continue to go deep into that substance with a microscope. The quality, the texture of the information he's talking about is what allows us to go deep into a book. He uses the word pores. And I am pretty sure that everybody in here has either used or has at least seen a Snapchat or Instagram filter. Is that a safe bet? Yeah. Laughs, head nods. Awesome. What do these filters do? If you notice, they make skin look very smooth and even, almost like it's plastic. It doesn't look real. The great books, the great stories have pores. When you see somebody's pores, you see all of them, don't you? Right? If you're close enough to see the pores on somebody, you can see every tiny little imperfection. Great books have that kind of information. We've started with To Kill a Mockingbird, so we'll use this as one of the examples throughout in this conversation. Did To Kill a Mockingbird ever break your heart a little bit? What happened to Tom? How? He got shot. How many? Do you remember how many times?
3, 2, 1, 5, 6, 7, 8.
You're just saying numbers.
100.
Nope.
At least twice.
That's not funny. If you don't have a real idea, 17 in the back, trying to escape. At that point in the book, my heart broke because I understood that this book's not going to have a happy ending. Tom isn't going to be exonerated. They're not going to release him from prison and tell everybody he was innocent. He died. It hurt. But that was real, right? It wasn't a fake happy ending. Did I laugh at that book? Yes. When Scout punches her cousin in the mouth and busts her knuckles on her teeth, I laughed. I was like, yes, that kid deserved it. When Boo Radley came out of the shadows and killed Bob Ewell, I cheered because that man deserved to die, right? But that book had details. It was life. It had pores. It showed you the ugliness and injustice of segregation and racism in the early 20th century, especially in the Deep South. Made you feel it, right? Forced you to look at the pores and the reality of society. That's the first thing he tells us is missing, that kind of quality information. Could it be in other stories? Sure. Anybody seen the movie Up?
Yeah.
First 15 minutes, man. If you don't cry in the first 15 minutes, I doubt whether you got a heart, right? What about Big Hero 6? Man, when his brother died at the beginning of that movie, when I lost a brother, like that hit. I was like, I'm crying this cartoon movie for kids. I'm going to leave the theater. I didn't. I stayed. It was worthwhile. Seeing Baymax act drunk when his battery ran down was totally worth it. Right? but those are real events. They're painful and they hurt. Yeah.
What about the movie Inside
Oh, love it. But it's real. They deal with some real difficult stuff in that, don't they? It's not just a happy-go-lucky, everything's nice. Great stories have that kind of quality of information. We can understand how that young woman hurts, right?
And Wonder.
Yep. And we can see how they grow through it, which brings us to the next point. How do we know we're getting to the next point? Because he says quality of information, and the second, leisure or leisure, if you want to be a little British and posh. Now, look at what Montag says. All right. Faber says leisure. Montag says, oh, but we've plenty of off hours, hours we don't work. Off hours, yes, but time to think. If you're not driving 100 miles an hour at a clip where you can't think of anything else but the danger, then you're playing some game or sitting in some room where you can't argue with a four-wall televisor. Big screen TV, right? Remember the TED Talk from yesterday with that progress bar? And it filled it up with like sleep and work and survival activities like eating and brushing your teeth and showering and all that. And then it had the white part, which was free time. But what did the red represent as it started to fill up that free time? Time on screens. And it started to fill it up. That's what he's talking about, right? Leisure. And what is the leisure time for? Right? To think. Now, Montag says something. He goes, my wife says books aren't real. And the first time I read this, I expected Faber to argue that point. No, books are absolutely real. But that's not what he says. What does Faber say? Thank God for that. You can shut them. Say, hold on a moment. You play God to it. When Tom got shot the first time I read it, right? Because I didn't know that was going to happen. And I could set that book down right there and say, I need a minute to think about this. To understand how it made me feel, to deal with the injustice and the violence and the anger. But I could set it down for a minute and give myself the room to think, right? To breathe it in a little bit. And then I could pick it back up when I was ready. That doesn't happen at a movie theater, does it? Right? You just have to keep going and keep dealing with it. Faber's point is, I'm glad books aren't real, because we need that leisure time to begin to understand, right? And so he recaps. Number one, as I said, the quality of information. Number two, the leisure to digest it. And number three, the right to carry out actions based on what we learn from the interaction of the first two. You got good information. We're missing time to really digest that information. And we're missing the ability to act on it once it changes us. So think about To Kill a Mockingbird, released in the 1960s, height of the civil rights movement, right? And that book had quality information. It turned a mirror on society and it showed people the ugliness, the reality, the pores that existed in the social structures that oppressed a large portion of the American public, right? Segregated Black Americans, that racism, it showed it to them. And then they had time to really think about what that book said, to understand the injustice in it. And it encouraged people to then become a part of the civil rights movement and become a part of tearing that structure down, of removing those hurdles of segregation and Jim Crow. But if you don't have the option for number three, which is to go out into the world and act based on what you take in and letting it change you, then you haven't gotten anything done. So the three things we're missing: good information, the time to think about it, and the ability to act on how it changes us. And you can think about this like food, right? I want to eat good quality food. I can't live off Doritos, right? I like Doritos, but I can't live off them. Maybe I could live off Takis, but that's a question for a different day, right? But I need good quality food. Then I need the time for it to digest. And then I got the energy to go out and do stuff with it, right? And that's what he's telling us we are missing. So he goes on to say that books, and this is your page, pores, 82. You can't guarantee things like that. It's at the top of 82. He says that books are to remind us what asses and fools we are. They are Caesar's Praetorian Guard, whispering as the parade roars down the avenue, remember, Caesar, thou art mortal. The Praetorian Guard was there by Caesar, the ruler of Rome, to do what? To tell him, when people were cheering him, saying he's amazing and all powerful and godlike, they were around to say, hey, dude, you're going to die just like the rest of us. Don't get too big of a head. Familiar with the court jester? You know what the court jester was? The kind of clown guy that would be in the court? The point of the jester, when everything worked the way it should, the court jester was the one person that could tell the king or queen the truth. To remind the king and queen, like, hey, you can make mistakes. You're a human. You're fallible. You will die. They were there to speak truth to power. That was their role. Books help us do that, right? Hopefully the court jester did it with some humor, but I'm sure a friend of yours has made a joke at your expense at one point in time that hit a little too close to home. Like, ooh, that kind of stings. Maybe it encouraged you to work on that part and to get better. But just like the Praetorian Guard, just like the court jester, books have an ability to point out to us what is wrong and to allow us to do something about it. Now, he goes on to say, the things you're looking for, Montag, quality of information, the time to think about it, and the ability to act on it, are in the world. But the only way the average chap will ever see 99% of them is in a book. Look, I've lived some pretty cool stories. I've met some really amazing people. I know some of y'all are watching Super Size Me right now, right? In another class. Has anybody seen that?
Heard of it.
Heard of it?
Isn't that one?
Yeah, we saw it first.
All right. Morgan Spurlock is the guy that's in that movie, right? Eating it. I met him in an airport. Isaac Hayes, jazz musician, voice of the chef on South Park. Met him in an airport in Spain. Right? Have you ever seen the bull run in Spain? I've had a chance to run twice. I watched one guy get gored 3 different times by 3 different bulls, and he was as close to me as Kent is. Right? I've had some stories because I always valued experience over things. I'd rather save my money to go do something than I would to buy a thing, right? It's like in college, friends were buying cars and sound systems and nice wheels, and it's like, let me save my money so that I can travel, right? But can I go everywhere and see everything? No, but I can live 1,000 lifetimes in the pages of a book. I can go back and experience the racism and segregation and injustice of the early 20th century in Southern America. I couldn't do that even if I traveled forever, right? These allow me a portal to other times, 1,000 lives lived in the past and 1,000 more lived in the future, to become part of another culture I would never be able to be a part of. All that is here, right? I can enhance my own human experience. I can learn from these. That's the point that Faber is making. These things exist in the real world, but you can certainly do a lot more of it if you couple that with this. Now, did Montag have these? The quality of information, the leisure time, and the ability to act already in his world? Not a lot of it, but you're right when you nod your head. Clarice, remember, quality of information, the texture, the detail. Hey, Montag, there's dew on the grass in the morning. Hey, Montag, taste the rain. Hey, Montag, dandelion. She had that quality of information. She gave him the time to think, and she listened to him. You notice after he met her, he started walking, but he wasn't listening to ear pods or anything. He was just walking around looking at stuff. He had that time to think. And then he had the ability to act after interacting with Clarice and the first two. It's what got him, right, to really begin to take the books out from where he'd hidden them, to seek Faber out. These 3 things already existed in his life, but he didn't really understand them. And he's certainly able to enhance them and get more of them in the book. And that's what he wants Faber to teach and do in terms of understanding. Now, Faber says something remarkable next. Don't ask for guarantees. Don't look to be saved. Do your own bit of saving. And if you drown, at least die knowing you were headed for shore. Now, we said part 1 was childhood, right? Ineptitude and ignorance. This part, right, is adolescence. says Montag becoming a little more, developing and maturing. Obviously, he's 30-something years old, so we're not talking about age. But consider this. When you become an adolescent, you start to rebel. And it's absolutely necessary that kids rebel a little bit. There's a healthy rebellion, and then there's unhealthy rebellion. But not rebelling can be just as bad. Why do you rebel a little bit? Because you want to start to do things for yourself, to have your own identity separate from that of your parents, right? If you don't rebel a little bit, you can end up with what Freud would refer to as the devouring mother. Let me protect and take care of my baby forever. And then you're a 45-year-old living in the basement. Nobody wants to hang out with that dude, right? Or dudette. So you rebel. You begin to say, I can do this for myself. Can you do everything for yourself right now? No, but you can do a lot more than you used to, right? No, childhood is saying, please take care of me. Dude, that's my boys, right? I got to put their shoes on so they don't step on sharp things. I got to figure out what the weather is so I can dress them to be safe, right? I got to give them food, tell them when to go to bed. I have to do things for them. And remember what Beatty said, right? At the end of this, we are looking at a society that asks people to take care of them. Please take care of me. If it makes me feel bad, I want you to fix it for me, right? Faber's point is the opposite. Save yourself. And at least if you fail, you know you were trying. Look, I can't promise you life is going to be grand. I can actually promise you the opposite. Life is going to be tough. It is going to suck. It is going to be filled with tragedy. But it will also be filled with beauty, right? But it requires you working the best you can for yourself, not allowing somebody else to do it for you or to ask somebody else to do it for you. Nobody's going to work as hard to save you as you will. Now, we can see that Bradbury structured these conversations to exactly line up. Population increased, variety and quality therefore went down. What are we missing? That quality of information. Technology increases, our time for reflection goes down. That was even in the TED Talk. What are we missing? The time to think about it, right? Part 3, because of 1 and 2, asking other people to take care of things for you. Part 3, because of 1 and 2, take care of yourself, right? He's not fully capable of it yet, but he's getting there. He's getting there. So let's take these ideas, right? And let's go look at some of the obviously best characters in the book. Mildred's friends. Did y'all like them? No? No? All right, fair enough. I think that puts you on page 91. 91, right? So Montag in adolescence here, he's going to have a confrontation with them. So she says, I've heard that too. I've never known any dead man killed in a war. Killed jumping off buildings, yes, like Gloria's husband last week. But from wars, no. Look, that's another suicide, isn't it? How does she mention that suicide? How does she treat it? Like a bug hitting a windshield, right? I'm assuming Gloria's a friend of hers, or at least air quotes friend. But oh yeah, her husband just jumped right off a building. Oh, man, it's heartbreaking. Then look at what she says about her marriage. Anyway, Pete and I always said, no tears, nothing like that. It's our 3rd marriage each, and we are independent. Be independent, we always said. He said, if I get killed off, you just go right ahead and don't cry. But get married again. Don't think of me. Rara, do me a favor. Can you read for them the note that I have right in there? Right here, by that paragraph I just read. What's that note say? Louder for me.
Why be married?
My note says, why be married? If that's the purpose of your marriage, why the hell get married in the first place? Be independent, don't cry, get married again. That's the opposite of the purpose of marriage. So in all cultures, right, when you look at the institute of marriage and it's established pretty much regardless of the religion, they all share something in common. To become one. It's a union. Make sense? I'm not supposed to be independent from my wife. She should support me and help me where I am weak or where I struggle. And I should do the same for her, right? She's my best friend, my confidant. We can tell each other anything. We're not supposed to be independent. We're supposed to be interdependent, dependent on one another, right? That's where this breakdown begins to happen, because that coupling together begins the first building block of society as a whole. It's how we function. So, has anybody ever seen a video of maybe a zebra or a deer or a horse being born? Or a giraffe? Giraffes have to fall a long way, poor guys. What are these animals capable of right after birth? Immediately, right? Now, think about this. Your adolescence, right, will last until your mid-20s, mid to late 20s. At 25-ish to 28, the neurochemistry in your brain settles down. And what I mean by that is all the chemicals that are flooding around your brain, it's not until your mid-20s that they get settled and begin to stay that way for the rest of your life, right? Adolescence lasts a long time, which means that for the human animal, it takes a lot longer for us to get from birth to self-sufficient adult than any other animal. Takes forever. Not forever, but more than a quarter of our lives, right? You can't imagine a 25-year-old zebra still hanging out with its mom needing stuff, right? Why is that? Because we're pretty amazing creatures. We can do anything, right? I could bring a zebra over here and throw it in the outside on our campus, and it's just going to eat grass. It's going to do zebra things. What's a zebra need to do? Eat grass and run away from stuff that'll kill it, right? Humans are a lot different, and we require a lot more care. That's where that building block of marriage starts. And we can see if this breaks down the way it does here. Be independent. Don't worry. Just go marry somebody else again. We could see how it results in how she treats her children. How did it say she thought of her children? No.
You don't have to take care of your
She says one thing specifically. That will be on your page 92. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I've had 2 children by cesarean section. No use going through all that agony for a baby. The world must reproduce, the race must go on. Might as well have babies, because otherwise there's going to be no more humans. It's kind of my obligation, right? Besides, sometimes they look just like you, and that's nice. I hope that's not the purpose of having children. No, the reason someone has a kid is, like I will tell you with my 2, I want them to grow up to be strong, capable, powerful men that can do good in the world, right? That can love and cherish and nurture and also protect. That's what I would want for anybody. That's what I want for you, to become strong and capable and powerful and able to make change in the world. Not to look like me, but that's what she says. At least they look like you. 2 cesareans turned the trick. Yes, sir. Oh, my doctor said cesareans aren't necessary. You've got the hips for it. Everything's normal, but I insisted. Do you know what a cesarean section is? A C-section, you might have heard it called. It's a surgical procedure to remove a baby in an emergency, right? So you can imagine, if something goes wrong with the hormonal balance, or maybe there's an emergency with the baby and they got to get it out really quick. Or the other thing would be what you call a breech baby. So when a baby's there, if you look at mammals, we all get born head first. Why? Some breathing, but you still got the umbilical cord. It's because if you go through a small place, imagine you trying to squeeze through something. If you go head first, that pins your arms and your legs together. I'm smaller this way, right? If you try to go through foot first, get stuck. That's a breech baby. It's when they don't flip upside down. So they might have to do a C-section to get that baby out, because you can't go through foot first. Okay? But these are for emergencies. However, what does she say? She asked for it. Here's something to consider about a C-section. Mother goes to sleep. You've got less than 5 minutes to get that child out of the mother, because the anesthesia that knocks the mother out is now in her bloodstream. If it gets into the baby's bloodstream, it'll kill the child, right? Because remember, mother and baby connected by the umbilical cord, right? So you've got a very short amount of time to get the baby out. And here she is like, I don't want to go through the pain or bother. Just take him out. And that's how I treated my wisdom teeth, not a child, right? So we can see how she thinks about her children a bit here. But go further. What does she do with them now that they're in the world? She puts them in school 9 days out of 10. Do you think they're coming home at the end of the day? No. Head shake is correct. They're not, right? This is like a boarding school. So they're home how many days out of the month? 3. What does she do with them? It says you heave them the parlor and you turn on the switch. So what she put them in front of? A TV. They're home 3 days out of the month. And now I just put them in there, turn the TV on. It's like washing clothes. Stuff the laundry in and slam the lid. Her kids are dirty towels to her. Right? Oh, they come home a few days. I just stuff them in there. Then they say they just as soon kick as kiss me. Thank God I can kick back. You think my children have ever bitten me?
Probably.
Yep. Once they got teeth, they were like, what are these awesome new things? They bit everything, right? Stuffed animals, my shoulder, books, you name it, right? They've hit me in places that have put me nauseous and on the ground with tears in my eyes because they're about this tall, and that's a dangerous height for a small person that doesn't have much muscular control. But could you imagine me that's booting a toddler? Spring fling, you see a 22-month-old flying across the street, right? No, what do? Like, I take that pain because I know it's part of their development. Have I ever wanted to kick them? Yes, I've wanted to once or twice. I'd lie to you if I said I didn't, right? I'm a human. Sometimes I'm like, you little, but I don't, right? Because I understand they're developing. But what does this woman say about her children? At least she can hurt them back. That's what brings her comfort. Her kids don't like her, but the thing that she is most thankful for is that she is capable of hurting them back. Now, let's back up to that idea of marriage that she introduced earlier with her husband. If you're that disconnected from the other person that should be part of this process, would you expect her to think any differently of her kids? No, ideally, right? You got that marriage, you get a family unit, and that's where the child learns respect for authority and discipline. And remember, we've talked about discipline equaling freedom, right? You're able to do more when you have discipline. And then they grow up and they're able to contribute to society. Now, is that to say that a single parent can't do the job? No, it's not to say that at all, right? I remember when me and mom it was just us living in an apartment in Virginia, and she did a very good job. I'm also super thankful for the man that's my stepdad and is like my dad, right? Because he brought something to the table too. Children are difficult. There are a lot of resources, a lot of time. 2 people manage that better than 1, right? Many hands make light work. But here we have a disconnected mother and father, and then wholly disconnected kids, right? You got a family that just wants to hurt each other. So it's no wonder that we got a society living in childhood, right? Take care of me. If you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you back. And not taking any responsibility to save themselves, right? To be able to act. Now, we get another little interesting lesson here. Look at the election. Who was the name of the president and what quality did he have that they liked? Right below where we were just talking. That would put you on. Yeah, exactly. Because he was handsome, right? Let's talk politics. That's 93, right? I laid it on the line for President Noble. I think he's one of the nicest looking men ever became president. Oh, but the person they ran against him. Hubert Hoag. Now, Hoag was running for a party we're told is the outs. What do you think the other party is? The ins. And we can look at how Hoag is described. So let me propose a question. Logan, what's your favorite color? Blue. Awesome. Jenny, do you like the color green or poop brown more? Green. I could have bet 20 bucks on her answer. Right? Why? How did I know you were going to say green?
Because who would like a blue color?
Because I controlled the question. Right? Did she really have a choice in that question? Not really. It's the illusion of choice. Now, I could not have bet on your answer. You could have said fuchsia, azure. I'm colorblind. I don't know. Like, I have no idea what would have come out of your mouth. Like, I don't know. It's open-ended. But I control your options. You had the illusion of choice. So look at this election in this story. You have Winston Noble. We need Ford, who does our announcements, to come over the intercom. I want to call him. Like, will you get on the intercom and just say Winston Noble, right? In that voice, tall, handsome for the ins. And then you have Hubert Hoag for the outs. Small, right? Frumpy, out of shape. Look how they describe it. He was kind of small and homely. He didn't shave too close or comb his hair very well. Okay, I feel a little attacked by those last two qualities, but I'll get over it, right? But he's the outs. Hubert Hoag, small, homely, unkempt, versus Winston Noble, tall, handsome, for the ends. Now, these people believe they're in a democracy. Did they really have a choice? No, we just gave them the illusion of choice. And then everybody gets to feel like they picked the winner. Of course you did. Right? Just like I knew you were going to say green. We could have all bet on that one. And we would all felt like we were smart enough to pick the right answer. It's an easy question. Do not in your future get manipulated by the illusion of choice. People will try to control you that way. It is an easy way to control people. All right, so let's go one little step further and look at what Montag says before they all leave. Go home. Go home and think of your first husband divorced, your second husband killed in a jet, and your third husband blowing his brains out. Yet another suicide. Right? Go home and think of the dozen abortions you've had. Go home and think of that and your damn cesarean sections too, and your children who hate your guts. Go home and think how it all happened, and what did you ever do to stop it? How did you try to save yourself? That would move you towards the very top of 98, the first paragraph on page 98 for you. But look at the end. What does he say? And what did you ever do to stop it? How did you at all take responsibility for this or try to act? Now, is everything Montag said true? Everything he said about her? Yeah. Think about all these problems. Did he say it in a way that would actually help her want to change? No. This is an adolescent, in a sense, rebelling, anger, lashing out at a child. Notice how when Faber talked to Montag, he was kind and careful with his words so that Montag could understand. Faber would have been capable of telling this woman these things, but doing so in a manner that encouraged her perhaps to change, to make a difference. Montag isn't there yet. He still needs some help, right? That's part of adolescence. You're taking on one little responsibility at a time, beginning to establish your individuality, learning how to try and save yourself. But you also need some help, right? Parents, teachers, coaches, family, friends. That's why we're a support system. But Montag is on to the right idea. If you don't try to save yourself, no one will. You can't be in perpetual childhood. You don't want to be 30 years old in the body of an adult, but the mind and the heart and the soul of a child. Where does that begin to change? With personal responsibility. taking in good information, right? Thinking about that information, thinking about the experiences, and then acting based on the new person that you've become, right? That's the goal. We can see at the end of this, where's Montag when we finally leave off? At the end of this part, where is he?
He's outside.
All right, where's the call taking him? His house. Right. We've stopped in front of my house. So he's on his way to burn. Oh, but he didn't even know that when he got in the car, did he? So Beatty's driven him to his house. And that's what we're going to pick up with tomorrow. And we'll start to see this final section as Montag, if he survives, making it through to adulthood. But the society is going to try to hold him back. That's what dystopias do, right? They want everybody to conform, everybody be the same. Rely on the government or the state to do everything for you. They don't want individual thinkers. They don't want powerful people capable of great good. They want people that are easy to control. So Montag's about to have to address this, right? So we're going to have our final showdowns beginning in part 3. Cool? All right, let's make sure all your questions for part 1 and part 2 are turned in before we start tomorrow. If you've got them now, you can turn them in now. We'll stack books up in sets of stacks of 5 over there on the podium. Any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Could I hold on?
What?
Hmm?
Can I work on the questions that